Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and you're going to be incredibly inspired by today's guest. I know I am, and she carries a message that on the surface doesn't seem to have anything to do with emotional eating, but you will find so many lessons in this, so many ways to be inspired to just improve your health, feel better, and be the absolute best you can be. And before I jump into my interview with Dr. Terry Wahls, I want to say that if you're not in the Secret Sauce group yet, head on over there. So go to Facebook and type in the Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. That's where we stay in touch. That's where a lot of my interviews are. A lot of my I'm just stopping by to comment on some things, going on out there regarding just new ways to think about weight loss, new ways to think about self-care. But also it's a great way to connect with other emotional eaters as a first step. Also, if you're not sure if you qualify as an emotional eater, I actually have a quiz that you can take. It's a free quiz. It takes 2 minutes to take, but if you go to healyourhunger.com, you will see the quiz. Take the quiz. Find out if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between. Because once you know the level you're playing at in terms of your relationship with food, then you know what steps you need to take, and we will certainly help you determine that. But you got to find out where you are on the spectrum, the emotional eating spectrum first. So take the emotional eating quiz. It's super easy and it's fun and it's free. Lastly, we have a really cool event coming up. And if you haven't tuned into it, you've got to be there. And the good news is right now you can be there either live in Los Angeles or online. So regardless of where you live, you can join us. It'll be a really fun experience. It's called Make Peace with Food. It's a 3-day retreat with me, going deep on healing your relationship with food, having a really good experience around food for once, and it's time to really get off the diet track and start feeling good about your food choices, feeling freer around food so you're not driven by cravings, and feeling great in your body. So it's called Make Peace with Food, Love Your Body, Love Your Food, Love Your Life. And you can find out more by going to makepeacewithfood.live. makepeacewithfood.live, okay? Live or live. So on with the show. Dr. Terry Wahls is an amazing human being and inspires me so much. She's an Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner and a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa, where she conducts clinical trials in the setting of multiple sclerosis. In 2018, she was awarded the Institutional for Functional Medicine Linus Pauling Award for her contributions in research, clinical care, and patient advocacy. She's the author of the Wahls Protocol, a radical new way to treat all chronic autoimmune conditions using paleo principles, and also the cookbook, the Wahls Protocol, Cooking for Life. So she's an amazing woman. She's done amazing things for the whole, progression of health for MS patients. And she does clinical trials, and you can learn about those trials. We'll actually put a link in the show notes for that. But here is my amazing friend and very inspiring trailblazer for health, Terry Wahls. Welcome, Dr. Terry Wahls. So glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It is such a pleasure. I just adore you as a person, and I honor you and the work that you've done and your brilliance and your trailblazing to help people with MS and all autoimmune issues. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. So I think it's important for people who don't know you to talk, and hear from you about your personal journey and how you even came to this really important work that you do.
So I'll tell this as it happened. 20 years ago, out walking with my wife Jackie, a half mile from home, my left leg grows weak. dragging it. I hobble home. When I see the neurologist, he says, Terry, this could be bad or really, really bad. Now, as I go through the workup for the next 3 weeks, I'm thinking about the 20 years of worsening electrical face pains I've had. And I'm praying secretly for a fatal diagnosis.
Mm,
I finally hear the words multiple sclerosis. I do my research. I find the best MS center in the country, see the best physicians, take the newest drugs. 3 years later, I hear tilt recline wheelchair.
wow.
My face pains are relentlessly worse. My 10-year-old daughter hugs me as tears stream down my face. But I ask myself, am I really doing all that I can? I go to PubMed and I begin searching and reading the basic science. I decide that mitochondria are the driver of disability, and I create a supplement cocktail to support my mitochondria. The speed of my decline slows. And then I discover a study using electrical stimulation of muscles. I ask my physical therapist, can I try that? He calls it e-stim. He says it's for athletes. But he does give me a test session, and it hurts really bad. But when it's over, I feel great. He says it's the endorphins. And we add e-stim to my physical therapy. And then I have a really big aha. What if I redesign the paleo diet that I've already been following for 5 years? If I redesign it based on all the basic science that I've learned and what I learned with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and I start this new way of eating. Now, at the time that I started, Tricia, I am so weak I cannot sit up in a regular chair more than 10 minutes.
Mm,
Otherwise, I'm either in bed or in a zero gravity chair with my knees higher than my nose. I can take just a few steps with 2 walking sticks, and I'm beginning to have brain fog.
wow.
I start this new way of eating. By the end of January, my fatigue is less, and I can sit up for the first time in a regular chair for my meals.
Mm,
And by the end of February, using walking sticks, I can walk in the hospital. And in April, I tell Jack, could I try biking again? And I haven't done that for 6 years. She said, well, maybe in October, maybe in the fall, if things keep going well. On Mother's Day, I really want to try. We have an emergency family meeting. She tells my 16-year-old boy, the big football player, Zach, you jog alongside on the left. She tells Zeb, my 13-year-old daughter, you jog alongside on the right. And I bike around the block. And that big
mm,
16-year-old boy, he's crying. The 13-year-old, she's crying. Jackie's crying. And I'm crying. And I cry even still telling that story because it was at that moment that I understood the current understanding of secondary progressive multiple sclerosis is incomplete. And who knows how much recovery might be possible. After that, I bike a little more every day. In October, Jackie signs me up for an 18.5-mile bike ride. And when I cross that finish line, my kids are crying, Jackie's crying, and I'm crying. And that fundamentally changes how I think about disease and health. It changes the way I practice medicine, and it changes the focus of my clinical research. And so I've made it my mission to change the standard of care so that every patient with multiple sclerosis or a neuroimmune condition or really an autoimmune condition will be told that diet matters, that we need to address diet and self-care so they can begin to heal.
wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. And, um, it helps paint the picture of why you're so passionate. and why this is so needed. And of course, this being the Heal Your Hunger show, diet and self-care that's our big message here as well, with
Mhm.
Heal Your Hunger, is that it's not about, machinations with food. It's really about self-care that enables you to make better choices,
Mhm.
food wise, and when you're stressed out and running here and there and you don't have boundaries on your time and you're resentful because you're a people pleaser, you're hungry,
You're
you're
hungry.
really hungry, and you're not hungry for broccoli and carrots. You are hungry for foods that will, calm you down very quickly and make you feel comforted. And that's a lot of what happens with emotional eaters.
Absolutely. And when we talk about some of the toxins in our life, we can think about, heavy metals, plastics, hormone disruptors. But, sometimes those toxins are the toxic relationships. And
Yes.
sometimes it's the toxic self-talk that says, and I was certainly guilty of this many years, where I had very toxic self-talk. Like many young people, I made some decisions early in my life that I deeply regretted.
Mm,
And so I spent 10 years with a lot of self-loathing because of those decisions. And I had to finally forgive myself.
yeah.
And interesting enough, it was with the birth of my son that I was able to realize, my life had to happen exactly as it did in order to have him.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I made many mistakes.
Yeah.
I had to make those mistakes so I could become wiser and make different choices later in my life, and
Yeah.
choices that would let me become a mom. Um, but I could have made made that discovery earlier in life, but if I had, I might not have my son.
Yeah. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah,
None of us have the correct
we
book to follow, right?
we evolve at the time, at the pace that we evolve.
Yeah, we do. And so long as we're constantly course correcting, it works out for the best.
When you fly or you sail, you are mostly off course,
Mm,
and you keep checking in and adjusting to get back on course.
yeah. I
And
love
we have to remember, in life, we get off course and we adjust, we get back, and we drift off course and we're like, okay, we have to adjust and get back. And remember that most of our life we're slightly off course. Only just for ever few moments are we truly exactly on course.
Right. I love that analogy, being a sailor. So
Yeah.
I love that, Terry. And and I think also the disease of perfection or perfectionism,
Oh,
contributes
yeah.
to the idea that we should be on course all the time, which is impossible, but that leads to beating ourselves up and having negative self-talk as well.
So, what is the ratio of good self-talk to negative self-talk? What's the optimal ratio that you've been taught?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been taught that. What have you been taught?
Well, for a while, I used to think that it just had to be sort of net positive. Now my talk therapy folks that I talk to uh, talk about you want at least 5 times to 20 times as many positive self-talk images to the negative ones. I'm like, I don't even do that. So
Yeah,
I
that's a
gotta
lot.
work on that.
That is quite something to aspire to. I just, in one of our groups, my coach, with my clients, we just literally that last hour before I jumped on here with you, we just did an exercise in positive self-talk, and helping people identify how they're trash talking themselves and what they can turn it into, because this is so vital for healing and healing anything.
You know, so let's talk trash talk for a little minute.
Okay.
I'm very into women's basketball. We have Caitlin Clark, who's this phenomenal player who does a lot of of trash talk. Um, she, but I love her trash talk because it's positive trash talk. It's not like you are terrible. It's like, you know, we are so good. I am so good at my threes. I can shoot from the logo. And it's so fun to watch competitive athletes with swagger. And yeah, they may have some negative trash talk back and forth, but it's a lot of fun to see the athletes that will have positive swag.
I
Like,
love
I
it.
am so good. I
Yeah.
am so good. I can do this. I can make these amazing um, logo shots. You can guard me and I will beat you to the basket in an easy layup. So that positive trash talk is what we should all be emulating. That
Totally.
that we have the swagger for our life. That I'm Dr. Terry Walls. By God, I beat MS into submission. By God, I am the grandmother leading the way for doing dietary studies in MS. None of this would have happened
Yes.
without the TED Talk, without the Walls Protocol.
Yes.
And it's okay to have that kind of swagger. Now,
Yes.
so I can do that with my friends and my colleagues. I'm not going to do that, well, my colleagues in my research team. I'm not going to do that kind of trash talk swag at a scientific meeting because that would not go over well.
No.
But we should have that kind of swag in our personal lives.
Yes, it's so true. And I think also as women, it's especially, I think discouraged culturally, and I think
Oh my goodness, yes.
we really could step that up a whole lot. So yay for you and all you're doing, and yay for me and all I'm doing. So
Yeah, no,
we're making big differences.
we're making big differences. We have to claim that it is our mission, it is our gift, it is our passion, and that we are very important people in our space.
Yeah.
I know in my space, many women have had early life stress that was very severe, that led to a lot of uh, negative self-talk,
Yep.
that may have led to problems with our relationships with food.
Yep.
And I've now have learned to ask people about their early life stress. Did it happen? And what are you doing? Are you seeing a talk therapist, trauma therapist to help you resolve that? Forgive yourself,
Yep.
forgive the events of your life, because it will be much easier to make forward progress if we can have some forgiveness. And
Yes.
I certainly, for myself, realize, and I did not recognize this for many years, that I had a lot of very early life stress,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to say it was the antibiotics uh, that started my illness. I don't think so. The antibiotics made me vulnerable. The early life stress made me more vulnerable. The self-loathing
Didn't help.
was pouring gas on that
Yep.
vulnerability.
Yep.
And so there are always lots of contributing factors that contribute to why we have problems with our relationship with food, why we develop the autoimmune issues, why we develop MS. And for many of us, it's not just one health challenge that we have, it's usually several.
Yes. And I think people don't realize how interconnected, the stressors, the trauma, the self-talk and the diet, how much they impact our level of health. So
Yeah, and for your listeners, my suggestion is for food, and this is what we do in my clinical practice is, so you decide what are the foods that you want to reduce or eliminate, what are the foods you want to add. Think about repeatable actions and one-time actions, and pick one.
Yeah. I like that.
And make it easy. Make it an easy
Yeah.
one. The first things that you want to pick should be like totally easy to do for you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like, instead of having 2 regular Cokes a day, I'm going to cut it down to 1.
Yeah.
That's
Baby
fine.
steps. Baby
Baby step.
steps. Yep.
A achievable thing, or maybe it's that I'm going to uh, uh, do 1 yoga pose a day.
Yeah, I love that. That's so gentle, right? It's so gentle and self-caring and self-loving.
Because it's very helpful to have success.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, Terry, about paleo and why that's,
Yeah,
now I feel like paleo was a big thing for a while and then it kind of got overshadowed by intermittent fasting or keto and this kind of thing. But I
yeah,
find personally paleo has been it's been my most stabilizing way of eating. Um,
yeah.
and I'd love to hear from you about it.
So if we think you humans separated from primates about 6 million years ago, we ate a lot of plants, a lot of leaves, a fair amount of dirt, some berries, and we were getting shellfish. And then we were breaking bones and getting marrow. And over time, the meat consumption and fish consumption, shellfish consumption increased. And then about 100,000 years ago, we got fire. And then our guts, by then, because we were eating more meat, it actually became quite a bit smaller. So we have a much smaller gut and cecum than other primates. And then about 10,000 years ago, we domesticated grain, legumes, in some areas, cattle. So now we have the emergence of villages and cities, and the diversity of foods that we ate narrowed. But from an evolutionary history, for 6 million years, we're eating plants and animal products. There were no grains, no processed foods, no sugars. The paleo diet is simply meant to try and have us eat a wide variety of plants and animal products and reduce the ultra processed foods, the sugars, um, um, the flour-based products, the fast foods, and recognize that we had reproductive success in many different ecosystems, many different parts of the world. So if anyone says there's one dietary pattern that is the correct dietary pattern, quit listening to them. They're wrong. Our evolutionary history says, we migrated out of Africa about 250,000 years ago, and we've had reproductive success, in many, many places. So eat plants, eat meat, eat less sugar, less processed foods, get rid of the flour-based products, and you'll do fine. If you want to add in intermittent fasting, great. If you want to occasionally do keto for a while, great. If you never want to do keto, that's not as optimal, but that's okay. If you want to do Mediterranean diet, maybe not as optimal, but probably still okay. I would just be cautious about how much grain and how much legumes you're going to do. So some I think would be okay. Um, but again, pay attention. And if a Mediterranean diet is what you and your family can do, that's what you should do. If a vegetarian vegan diet is spiritually what you need to do, then that's fine. Work with a physician who can help monitor your vitamins, minerals, fats to be sure that you are nutritionally sound.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for laying that out. Um, I want to jump to self-care because we mentioned that earlier, and that's such a big, I beat that drum quite a lot. My clients are like,
Yeah, but
yep, that's a thing.
we
And
both.
so, yeah, we do. We both do. It's so integral to both of our health, right? And so, you with MS, me with emotional eating, and it's like it's a non-negotiable for me, and I know it is for you as well. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about, kind of what is your routine for, staying upright and healthy and
So
effective in your life?
it will vary, of course, but I get up. I will do my workout, which might be swimming, strength training, Nordic walking, jogging on my treadmill, which I'm very excited about, or jogging in the neighborhood. I will often do a sauna and or a cold shower or an ice bath. I do my work, and then in the evening, I like to do meditation, sauna, or an ice bath and go to bed. Excuse me.
And when somebody asks you, gee, Terry, that's a lot of time, because it also includes like healthy eating as well, which does
Correct.
take time. So when somebody says to you, gosh, Terry, you spend a lot of time on your self-care, what's your response?
Well, if my face pain turns on, it's the most intense pain I've ever known. Worse than broken bones, worse than post-op pain, worse than active labor. It's an electrical jolt of pain that for a moment blinds me.
Mm,
The pain is so intense. And if my stress level becomes too high, if I get exposed to the wrong food, that face pain turns on. So over time, I've learned that I'm much less likely to have my face pain turn on if I'm doing all that self-care. Now, for everyone who's listening, just start where you're at. So if that means that I'm just going to have you do a 5 or even 1 minute 4-7-8 breath work to begin with, that's fine. That's all you need to do is just begin with where you're at. And yes, there are days where I spend 2 hours of self-care, and there are days where I spend 5 minutes on my self-care. It depends on the demands of the schedule. I will also tell you that my wife keeps an eye on me, and she'll say, I see you've been scheduling a lot of 8 o'clock meetings, hun,
mm,
and your face paint's going to turn on. And
mm,
then, my face paint turns on. And she goes, you can't schedule meetings before 9, so you have enough time to get your self-care in.
yeah.
So, and I'm the only one who can do those 8 o'clock meetings. No one else gets to schedule in there. I and yes, I still do occasionally 8 o'clock meetings, but if I do them every day of the week, my face pain turns on, then I've lost 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
So, but again, everyone who's listening, start with a little tiny action that you can do, implement that, and you will. And I don't do 2 hours of self-care every day. I do some days it's 5 minutes.
Yeah. But it's so critical to your well-being, and you have such an immediate reaction when you don't.
I am so grateful for my trigeminal neuralgia. And I had 27 years of relentless worsening. I thought it would likely turn permanently on, and I had changed my living will and my medical power of attorney. So Jack and I had talked about this. If it turned on, so my physicians weren't able to get it turned off, so that all of my sensory input were transmuted to this intense, horrific electrical pain, I'm unable to speak because
Mhm.
I'm
Wow.
that's like all I can communicate. I stopped swallowing, so I'm just drooling. And if I got to that point, there'd be no IV fluids, no tube feed, and I would, eventually die of dehydration. And in 2007, yeah, it was just so clear to me. The trajectory of my illness was I was going to be bedridden, demented, and eventually dying with that level of horrific pain,
Mm,
probably for the last week of my life. Um, now, so immense amount of suffering, 27 years, immense suffering.
wow.
Now, actually, I think about my trigeminal neuralgia as this amazing gift because I have this, I also wear a continuous glucose monitor, so I know what my glucose, I can check it out anytime. I had this amazing continuous brain monitor. Is my brain inflamed or not? If it's inflamed, I have incapacitating pain. If it's
Oh,
not inflamed, I feel great. My sensation in my face is normal. So I've taught my neurologist, you have to teach your patients that their symptoms are their continuous brain monitor.
mm,
And when they get that aha, like, okay, it turned on, what might the trigger have been? That's how I learned, life is better if I'm doing self-care every day. Life is better if I work out, if I meditate. And I sort of fluctuate with more time meditating, more time working out, more time in the sauna. So what amount of my day is in those three activities, and whether it's in the morning or the evening may fluctuate. But by paying attention to my symptoms, my continuous pain monitor in my brain and my head, I figured out, you know what? It's to me a pretty easy trade-off to shift what I'm doing in my day to be pain-free.
yeah, I love that. Terry, thanks for laying that out for us. And, for those of you who either have MS or know somebody struggling with MS, Terry's obviously, you have to get her book, you have to reach out, you have to know that obviously, she's a living, walking example of a solution. And thank
Here's
you
the
for the
book,
book, The Wahls Protocol. Love it.
and here's the cookbook to go with it.
Okay, the Wahls Protocol, Cooking for Life, which is obviously paleo. It's a paleo
Yeah, very paleo friendly.
paleo plus. So anybody who struggles with autoimmunity, that is, the cookbook for you. And those who don't have any relation to MS but have tuned in, I think the tie back to your experience, if you're an emotional eater, is, yeah, being healthy takes work. Yeah, being healthy
Hmm.
takes sacrifices, and you better believe it's worth it, because there's no reason any of us have to live suboptimally, at least if we have any agency, that we can
Yeah,
execute.
but just start where you're at.
Baby steps. I love that message.
Small actionable steps.
Yeah, baby steps. And that is such a gentle, loving suggestion. And it goes for the way you eat. If you're eating just for, better health, for weight loss, whatever it is, the all or nothing, the all or nothing doesn't work. And we've tossed that out the window a long time ago. So if your head goes there, just know, we're talking about positive self-talk, encouraging thoughts, positive actions, but just one baby step at a time. And I love that. That's how we reach our goals, whatever those goals are. Yeah. Thanks so much, Terry. You're such a
Yeah.
rock star.
Now, can I tell your audience about our clinical trial?
Please. Oh, yes. I meant to ask what's going on right now. Please tell
So,
us.
so we have a clinical trial comparing a ketogenic diet, a paleo diet to usual diet. We randomize between the three diets. The reason you randomize is that gives you the strongest evidence for the benefit of the intervention. The people come to Iowa. We do all the assessments, walking, hand function, vision function, and we get a research MRI, so no contrast. They come back again at 3 months, repeat the walking and vision, and come back at 2 years, repeat all the assessments, including that research MRI. And the questions we're asking are the impact on fatigue, quality of life, walking, hand, vision function. And we're also asking, can diet get people with MS? Because you see, our brains are shrinking 3 times as fast as occurs if you have healthy aging, which is why we have higher rates of anxiety, depression, job loss, brain fog, early dementia.
Wow.
My big hypothesis is that by teaching people to eat well, we can get them back to healthy rates of aging. And I fully expect all three groups will improve because I know people in the control arm, the usual diet arm, they're going to improve their diet. They won't be eating a standard American diet. So it's possible that all three arms will have significant improvement. And I think that would be great. I think the biggest papers coming out of this will be what happened to the brain volume over time.
Wow.
You know,
Terry, I just love it.
and that's because the drugs, they do a great job of stopping relapses, but they don't do a good job of preventing that brain volume loss.
Well, thank you for that research. I have contributed in the past to your research because I
Yeah.
believe in it so
So
wholeheartedly.
people can learn more about that at terrywalls.com/MS study.
Okay,
Again,
that
that's,
specific research that you're
yep.
doing. Okay,
So terrywalls.com/MS study.
thank you so much. And your books are on Amazon, I presume.
They're on Amazon. If you go to terrywalls.com, you'll see links to the books, the cookbooks, and the other resources we have to help people make these kinds of dietary changes.
I love it. It's a great message. You're, a beautiful example of your work and research. And thank you again for trailblazing for health. You're just an amazing person. So many blessings to you. I have one last question, Terry, this being the Heal Your Hunger
Okay.
show. What is your deepest hunger?
That would be to be able to run and jog outside in the air. I just love jogging. I jogged many, many years, and that is what really brings me a lot of joy right now.
Beautiful. I love that. And I want that for you as much as you can handle and more increased capacity to jog. So I love that. Thank you so much for being with us on the show. It's been incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you on the next show.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.